Yes, it is time for another game of Shelve It or Shove It, the completely superficial way to pick your TBR based solely on their cover. I am the booktube goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube. I'll be looking at young adult, science fiction, and fantasy, and pick one to read in March. This is the February Goodreads new release list. So let's start with young adult, and first up is You Truly Assumed by Layla Sabrine. This looks like a contemporary young adult, and I'm not sure what it's about other than there are people of color on the cover, so this is going to have a very diverse cast, which is great, but just going by the cover, not enough for me, so I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys, and there is a storm, at least lots of storm clouds over a city. There is a flag. It is by the author of Salt to the Sea, and it says it's about spies. So political thriller? I'm not sure, but not really speaking to me, so I'm going to shove it. Next up is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axio. Never heard of this author. Gorgeous cover though. I love this Asian-inspired illustration of a girl rising from the waters, I guess, and behind her it looks like a young man. There's a pagoda, volcano maybe, there's water lilies. It's very beautiful, so beautiful, in fact, that I'm going to have to shelve it. Next up is Court by Tracy Wolff. It says, checkmate. Court, there's a little drip of blood falling on a shield, and there's an axe underneath. I'm really not a big fan of this cover. The background just is too simple for me. I kind of like the word court with blood. I'm going to assume this is young adult fantasy. Could be historical fiction. I don't know. But I don't like this cover. There's something about it. I don't like this photorealistic shield and axe, and I'm going to have to shove it. And finally, in young adult, it's Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. And it's kind of pretty, but I'm not sure what it's about. It's featuring the font in sort of this very cursive looking script. The tagline says, in every story there is a hero and a monster. She is not the hero, so the girl protagonist maybe is a monster. Retelling of Beauty and the Beast? I don't know. I have too many questions about this. Even though I do think this is an attractive cover, I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is science fiction, and first up is Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes, a ghost ship, a salvage crew, unspeakable horrors. And it looks like there is a hand in some sort of, I guess, submersible, and it looks super creepy. I'm kind of in the mood for a good horror, and the author's familiar, but I don't think I've read anything by them, and I like the cover. It looks very creepy. I think I'm going to shelve it. I kind of wish they had a separate category for horror. Just thinking of that out loud. Anyway, next up is The Paradox Hotel by Rob Hart. No idea. I have no idea what this book is about. I'm going to think it's contemporary science fiction. I'm not sure if these are worlds, but there's some type of symbol, I guess the hotel symbol or a corporate symbol. I don't know. Know nothing about this book by the cover. I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is Manhunt by Gretchen Felker Martin. And what am I looking at? I have no idea what I'm looking at. I thought they were body parts, but maybe they're plums or some type of gross something. And it says the end of the world is nuts. Oh, maybe they're nuts. You know what? I think if I saw this in a bookstore, I may read the jacket blurb, but since I'm just basing this on the cover, I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. There's a guy floating in space. The astronaut suit doesn't look super futuristic, so I'm going to think it's maybe near future, but don't know enough about this book from the cover, so I'm going to have to shove it. And finally, in science fiction, The Violence by Delilah S. Dawson. And is it just me, or are there a lot of horror books in science fiction this month? There is a knife, and I guess it's throwing the shadow of a person's face in silhouette. I'm not a big fan of this cover. It's too simplistic. I guess I don't like those solid color covers. They just don't do it for me, and this just looks really simple. So I'm going to shove it. Now we move on to fantasy. First up, people are going to go crazy for this. It is Sarah J. Maas, her new Crescent City novel, House of Sky and Breath. Well, guess what? I haven't been keeping up with this series, but I am glad that she's doing adult rather than young adult. And the cover's pretty, but I know this is a sequel in maybe the middle of the series, and Sarah J. Maas is kind of hit or miss for me, mostly miss. So I think I am going to have to shove it. Next up is Moon Witch Spider King by Marlon James. Now I saw this cover when I was reviewing the 2022 science fiction and fantasy releases that to look out for. And I remember reading the blurb, this is a sequel, and being intrigued by it. But for Shelve It or Shove It, I don't like this cover. I really think it's confusing and ugly, doesn't really tell me much about the story. Even though I may in the future read this series, I am not a fan of this cover. So I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is Echo by Thomas Old Huvelt. And this looks interesting. I love the picture of the guy in shadow with birds or crows coming out of his head. There is sort of this forest background. It's giving me contemporary. I am intrigued by this. This is the type of cover that really appeals to me. So guess what? I'm going to shove it. Next up is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. It is a boring cover. Boring. There's not much to say about it. I guess this is a stylized river with a lute. Is that what it is? Or harp? Slowly drifting in it. Don't know anything about this book. I am going to shove it. And finally, we have Last Exit by Max Gladstone. The name is very, very familiar to me, but I don't think I've read anything by Max Gladstone. Let me know in the comments if you have, because I kind of feel like I ought to read one thing by him. Anyway, he is apparently a Hugo and Nebula winner. And it appears to be a city on the side. I don't know why it's tilted on the side, but it looks like there's some vortex, whirlpool, cloud thing. So, contemporary fantasy, my guess is. It's giving me horror vibes, actually. So, this is another one of those tough ones because I'm really intrigued by it, but I'm not getting enough from the cover of what this could be about. Even the genre seems a little mysterious. I'm going to have to shove it. Okay, it looks like I only shelved 3 books. Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O, Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes, and Echo by Thomas Old Velt. And I don't think I'm going to pick The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. It's reminding me a lot of the book I picked last month, Daughter of the Moon Princess. So yeah, let's do something different. In these other 2 books, Echo and Dead Silence both look like horror, or at least have horror vibes. And of these 2 covers, I think I'm going to go with Echo. Echo by Thomas Old Velt. It's very spooky, very intriguing. It is in the fantasy genre, but I'm thinking this is contemporary horror. Let's read the blurb. Travel journalist and mountaineer Nick Grievers awakes from a coma to find that his climbing buddy Augustin is missing and presumed dead. Nick's own injuries are as extensive as they are horrifying. His face wrapped in bandages and unable to speak. Nick claims amnesia, but he remembers everything. He remembers how he and Augustin were mysteriously drawn to the Maudit, a remote and scarcely documented peak in the Swiss Alps. He remembers how the slopes of the Maudit were eerily quiet, and how, when they entered its valley, they got the ominous sense that they were not alone. He remembers something was waiting for him. But it isn't just the memory of the accident that haunts Nick. Something has awakened inside of him, something that endangers the lives of everyone around him. It's one thing to lose your life, it's another to lose your soul. Okay, as I thought, this looks like a contemporary horror, and I am not mad about it. I am very intrigued. Let me know which book you would have picked just based solely on the cover. I'm kind of happy with my choice, but we'll see if I actually like the novel because I have never even heard of this author. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. If you don't know, I do lots of videos on books if that's something you're interested in, and you can see one of them right here. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.